Deepening unrest in Iran this Saturday night. What we're learning as the information blackout drags on, with open calls for regime change and more solidarity rallies here in Canada. ICE shootings fuel coast-to-coast protests in the U.S.
We refuse to accept this fascism.
The growing demonstrations and the UN weighing in after this week's deadly incident in Minneapolis. A new look at what we eat, the warning labels now appearing on Canadian food products. Plus, listening beneath the surface.
We had no idea if we could tell those different species sounds apart.
How scientists are using sound to track and protect fish off of BC's coast.
Global National, reporting tonight, Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Defiant protests in Iran are showing no sign of letting up as an information blackout enters a third day. There is growing unrest and outrage with fiery demonstrations against Iran's regime and its repression spreading right across the country to every province and some 100 cities. Human rights groups say 65 people have been killed with thousands more arrested in the nearly 2 weeks of protests. They began over crippling economic conditions and have morphed into demands for a new form of government to replace the 47-year-old Islamic Republic. The regime has cut off internet and phone lines, making it difficult to know the extent of what's happening. President Trump has repeatedly warned of U.S. intervention siding with protesters. And today, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney condemned the clampdown and the killing of demonstrators. Redmond Shannon has our top story tonight.
Iran's Attorney General says Iranians could face the death penalty for doing this, or even helping someone who does this. It is hard to know exactly what is happening in Iran since the internet and phone lines were blocked on Thursday, but some videos are getting out. When the internet was cut during the 2019 fuel protests, hundreds of people were killed in a crackdown by security forces.
The blackout is not a new thing which is happening. Islamic Republic is using that as a weapon.
On Saturday, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said maintaining security is a, quote, red line, after multiple sites were set on fire by protesters, some of whom chanted death to Khamenei. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei says demonstrators are destroying their country for the US president. Donald Trump has repeatedly suggested he may intervene to protect them. And on Saturday he posted, "The USA stands ready to help." Reza Pahlavi is also the focus of many Iranians' hopes. He is the exiled crown prince whose father was deposed in the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Pahlavi has called on protesters to seize town centres and to hold them, and for a national strike. The influence of Pahlavi and Trump make these protests different to previous ones, according to this Iran analyst.
So they see Reza Pahlavi as a prince which represented new world. This is not getting to the old monarchy style. It's the idea of going ahead toward the secularism, democracy and liberal.
With Iran partially cut off from the rest of the world, the impact and the fallout from this weekend's protests may not be understood for days. Nitu?
Redmond Shannon in London. Thanks, Redmond. Supporting the push for political change is growing in countries around the globe. In London, England, a protester climbed the balcony of the Iranian embassy, removed the flag of the Islamic Republic before waving Iran's pre-revolutionary flag featuring a lion and sun. Here in Canada, people across the country joined demonstrations demanding an end to the violence and poverty in Iran, standing in solidarity with the plight of protesters. Dan Spector reports.
A sea of people takes over St. Catherine Street in downtown Montreal. These Iranian Canadians echoing widespread protests in their home country, demanding the end of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's clerical rule.
Everyone here has family somewhere, friends, family, loved ones, that they don't know what's happening to them.
With Iran cutting off communications amid its effort to crack down on the demonstrations, people here are holding their breath, waiting to speak with their families back home.
I cannot talk to them. It's disconnected, and we were in daily contact.
Last thing they told me, hey, we're going to the streets, keep doing what you're doing, be our news, and I haven't heard back.
Human rights organizations report dozens of people have been killed during the protests all across Iran. They started as a response to inflation and the cost of living, but now demand the downfall of the Islamic regime there. Death to Khamenei, they scream. The same calls have been heard in Tehran and beyond. They want Reza Pahlavi, the son of Iran's last Shah, to assume power.
47 years of torture, problems, killing, pounding, and everything, so it is enough.
Similar marches were held across Canada on Saturday, including in Toronto and Vancouver. There have been other uprisings over the years in Iran that were always eventually quashed, but Iranian Canadians feel like this time could be different.
People of all social classes, people of all genders, people of all walks of life are coming out and asking for what they want, and that is to be rid of the Islamic Republic.
They marched to the U.S. consulate. President Donald Trump and his administration are expressing support for their movement.
We want to thank President Trump for his support.
I cannot trust him 100%, but I hope.
The people here hope even from halfway around the world their calls contribute to the fall of the Islamic regime and that they're able to hear from their loved ones soon. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
In the U.S., nationwide protests are also unfolding as anger boils over this week's deadly shooting in Minneapolis involving immigration and customs enforcement officers. From coast to coast, huge rallies continue calls for justice for Renee Good, the Minnesota woman shot dead by an ICE officer on Wednesday. That's on top of anger over another shooting on Thursday that saw federal immigration agents wound a couple in Portland, Oregon. Candace Cole looks at the latest demonstrations condemning the Trump administration.
Members of Congress, it is your duty to protect your constituents, to protect our democracy. How much do you need to see, hear, and feel before you do something?
People in Minneapolis have taken to the streets for the third day in a row since an immigration enforcement agent fatally shot 37-year-old Renee Good in her vehicle as she was apparently trying to drive away. Good's killing sparking a groundswell of protests, leading to violent clashes between protesters and ICE agents on the ground. Tensions continued to rise Saturday as members of Minnesota's congressional delegation were kicked out of the state's regional ICE headquarters while trying to perform oversight duties.
ICE officials, they don't know how to obey the law in any way or fashion. This morning proved that they will not allow us to do our duties as members of Congress.
The mayor of Minneapolis thanking community members for keeping demonstrations largely peaceful, despite a few agitators.
We will not counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos here. We in Minneapolis are going to do this right.
And rallies continue to crop up elsewhere across the country, from Austin, Texas and Denver, Colorado, to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia.
We want ICE out of sight!
All standing in solidarity to
remember Renee Good and remember her life and what happened to her and the 32 people who died in ICE detention in 2025.
Good's killing also sparking reaction from the United Nations.
The video that we saw of the shooting was deeply disturbing. You know, whether it's in the U.S. or anywhere else in the world, people have a right to protest peacefully. That's an inherent right.
The Trump administration has framed it as self-defense on the part of the ICE agent and is refusing to work with local authorities to conduct a joint investigation, as demonstrators say their fight to preserve democracy continues.
My ancestors are from Ireland. They came here looking for a better life. Everyone should have that.
Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
Authorities in Nicaragua have reportedly arrested at least 60 people for celebrating or expressing support for the U.S. operation and arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega is a staunch ally of Maduro, who was captured by U.S. military personnel in Caracas a week ago. Maduro was taken to New York to face federal drug and narco-terrorism charges. The U.S. has launched another round of airstrikes against the Islamic State in Syria. Multiple targets were hit, but the number of casualties is unclear. U.S. Central Command says the strikes, conducted alongside partner nations, are retaliation for the ambush deaths of 2 American soldiers and an interpreter in December. Mark Carney is being cautioned to be wary of the intentions of the Chinese government ahead of the first visit to China by a Canadian Prime Minister in 8 years. And it seems Canadians are equally cautious. A new poll provided exclusively to Global News finds only a small majority support the idea of closer ties. David Aiken has more.
It has been more than 4 years since the 2 Michaels were released from 3 years of detention in China on trumped-up charges. Their case brought Canada-China relations to a new low. But now, Prime Minister Mark Carney appears ready to begin a new chapter with China, and one of those Michaels has a caution.
Economic interaction with China now comes with a much higher price tag of measures you have to take to protect democracy, human rights, security, and sovereign independence.
Carney's first goal of this trip, get China to drop its boycott of Canadian canola. The question is, what will Canada give up? Ontario's Premier Doug Ford says it cannot be accepting Chinese electric vehicles, and experts agree.
My hope is that that solution doesn't include dropping the tariffs on EVs, even a little bit. Those tariffs are really important for our auto sector.
If Canada does that, then it would hollow out its automobile manufacturing sector within a decade.
But Canada and China may find common ground elsewhere.
We know that Prime Minister Carney has big infrastructure plans, and part of that is energy and the Asia market. So that's an area that I think that they could have a deal that would offset canola.
But a new poll provided exclusively to Global News shows that only a bare majority, 54%, support closer ties with China, while 32% are opposed.
Well, I think these numbers are less about China and more about the United States.
While the 2 Michaels were in captivity, 80% opposed closer ties with China. Canadian opinion has now changed, mostly because of Trump's tariff war.
And that is what is really driving Carney's globetrotting these days, be it China or elsewhere, finding new buyers for Canadian exports. Neithu.
All right, David Aiken in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Dim prospects for dining out. Coming up, the financial toll of Canada's tough economy on Nova Scotia's restaurants. New projections from Dalhousie University forecast 4,000 restaurants are set to shut down across Canada this year. The sector is facing the pressure of inflation and rising food prices. In Nova Scotia alone, industry insiders say almost half of the province's restaurants are operating at a loss. Mitchell Bailey looks at how the rising cost of living is adding to the stress for restaurant owners in Halifax.
It's been really, really hard.
Daniela Alonso opened Taquitos in Bedford 2 years ago. She says the Mexican restaurant was booming in its first year, but now customers just aren't showing up like they used to.
Everything is so expensive. Food is expensive. Again, rent is very expensive. But I mean, everything is so expensive. I'm sure people are having a hard time too, and maybe they don't go out as much.
Alonso says she's cut her staff by half as annual sales plummeted by more than 50%. She says most neighboring businesses that were there when she first opened have since closed, and what shutting down would mean for her.
Bankruptcy. I put everything in here. You know, we actually built the place, so we had to, I mean, we maxed out everything, right? So, I mean, the employees would have to go and I would have to go bankrupt.
On January 4th, Driftwood in Halifax's North End announced its closure less than a year after opening. The restaurant's owner declined to go on camera, but says his location wasn't attracting enough customers to justify staying open through the slower winter months. The Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia says 41% of food establishments in the province are operating at a break-even or loss. That number was just 12% in 2019.
You know, research is showing 75% of folks are dining out less. They're reducing their discretionary spending because of the cost of living. So right there, you can see for the restaurants that on the one side, expenses have gone up, you know, there's inflation, but then also on this other side, people have had to cut back on their spending.
Despite the closures, the Downtown Halifax Business Commission says it's still seeing more spots open in the downtown core.
Whenever a restaurant leaves, it can actually, of course, be very sad for that business owner if it's not viable. But generally speaking, we're only seeing more and more restaurants opening in downtown Halifax.
As for Alonzo, there is a silver lining. She says sales are increasing after she made a social media post explaining the dire situation, asking for the community's support.
The first day after I posted, we sold out around 6 in the evening. We were all sold out. And then it has been continuing, like that.
She's hoping the momentum can be sustained to keep that open sign hanging in the window. Mitchell Bailey, Global News, Halifax.
Elon Musk's Grok chatbot is facing backlash with Indonesia temporarily blocking the AI tool. Indonesia has become the first country to deny access to Grok, which allows users to digitally undress people, including women and children. Governments around the world have condemned the app. Some have opened inquiries. Officials in the UK say they will take action soon.
I think the images being produced are despicable and abhorrent, and sexualizing images of children is one of the worst crimes imaginable.
X has now restricted its image-generating feature to paying subscribers. Musk says anyone using Grok to make illegal content would suffer the same consequences as if they had uploaded such material directly. New warning symbols on your groceries ahead. Why Health Canada says the labels will help you shop smarter, and why some say nutrition isn't that simple. You may have noticed warning labels are now officially required on many packaged foods sold in this country. The symbols flag products high in sodium, sugars, and saturated fat. It's a move meant to help people make quicker, more informed choices at the grocery store. Health Canada says it empowers consumers, but critics say it oversimplifies nutrition.
You'll notice that they have a high-end label for saturated fat.
It means on the high end of potentially dangerous levels of sodium, sugar, and/or saturated fat.
So this is 30% of your daily value.
As of January 1st, front-of-package warning labels like this are now mandatory on many pre-packaged foods sold in Canada. They're meant to provide shoppers with a glance of nutrients of concern so they can make quick decisions at the store. The magnifying glass appears on products with about 15% or more of the daily value of nutrients linked to chronic disease.
Canada is experiencing high rates of chronic disease like obesity, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease. We have good reason to believe that there could be a significant change in the way that consumers think about, purchase, and consume these kinds of foods.
And that's because research out of Chile, which introduced similar food labels in 2016, shows the impact has been significant.
The salt in bakery products went down by 40%. So there were both consumers not buying those foods with warnings on them, but also the food industry reformulated foods to avoid the symbols on the front.
Some food industry groups have criticized the labels as too simplistic, saying they focus only on 3 nutrients and don't show the full nutritional picture. And some producer groups have warned they could stigmatize certain foods.
I typically lean toward the one that doesn't have that label.
Health Canada says the industry had more than 3 years to prepare for the change. Products made or imported before the deadline can still be sold until stocks run out. Some products like whole fruits and vegetables, raw meat, and certain dairy items are exempt.
I think it's helpful for sure, because sometimes it's hard to read a nutrition panel on the side.
Researchers say it'll take time to measure the full impact in Canada, but if results mirror Chile, these small symbols could lead to big shifts in what Canadians buy and what companies sell. Sounds under the sea. Next, how researchers in BC are eavesdropping on fish. In BC, a team of researchers at the University of Victoria has opened the door to identifying different fish species based on the sound they make. Using special equipment and methods to record them underwater, they hope it will help with monitoring and protecting vulnerable species. Here's Kylie Stanton.
The catch of the day isn't a fish, but sound. Each knock, grunt, or croak, revealing a conversation we're only just beginning to understand.
We did know that fish were making noises, but we had no idea if we could tell those different species sounds apart.
Darian Lancaster led a team of researchers in identifying the unique sounds made by 8 different species of fish in the wild. Their findings now published in the Journal of Fish Biology.
By pinpointing where a sound was coming from and triangulating it to the video that showed what species of fish were making those sounds.
Using an underwater microphone, the team managed to eavesdrop on rockfish and other species near the community of Bamfield on the southwest coast of Vancouver Island. A machine learning model with 47 different sound features allowed them to predict which sounds belong to which species with up to 88% accuracy, all while informing their behavior.
Certain species like copper and quillback rockfish were making way more grunting noises when they were being chased by other larger fish. So it's basically like a defensive mechanism.
Monitoring fish through sound is much less invasive than other techniques such as hook and line.
And this is great for low visibility areas like deep water or nighttime. And it's also great because you can leave these microphones out for months or years at a time and get amazing, useful conservation data.
The hope is to use that information to create marine protected areas for these particular species to ensure they have strong stocks going forward.
And we'd also like to build some fish sound detectors so that we can put audio into these kind of software programs and it'll spit out exactly what species of fish are living in what regions.
Casting a wider net could help identify the sounds of dozens more fish off BC's coast, including 41 species of rockfish. Each new sound recorded helps to reel in the answers. Kylie Stanton, Global News.
Fascinating. That is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is Winterbrook, Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for watching and hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.